What is going on, guys? Welcome back to the Crew 2, and in this video I'm going to be taking a look at the recently added Saleen S1, which is going to be in the street category, which is honestly kind of nice, but I do have a feeling this car is not going to be all that great from the testing I have done with it. Now, if you're wondering, I do think this build I'm running on this vehicle is going to be pretty dang good as well, because I was messing around with it in a couple of races, and I was having some issues with this car actually turning decently, so I do think this build's going to be pretty dang good on it. I used it on the Pikes Peak race, and it did pretty well for the most part. It does slide a little bit here and there, but I do think that's just the nature of this vehicle from what I could see. Now, from the few races I have done with the S1 here, I would say this is probably going to be my favorite build I'm running on the car at the moment. Now, before I did have the ARBs a little bit lower, like over here, just like that, with both sides, even with the rear, and I was just not liking how this car was turning at all. It would also slide a lot around basically any turn, which I was finding this to be kind of annoying because you're trying to get around the turns as fast as possible, and no matter what you did with the car, it literally just would not turn correctly. But with this current build I'm running on this car, I would say this is probably going to be one of the best options because I did the Pikes Peak and the car did perform pretty dang well for the most part. Now, when it comes to the customization on the Saleen here, there is a good amount of things you can do to the vehicle, including the colors here, which for me I currently have on the orange on the Saleen, which I do like how this looks. We will also have the red color option here, and then we're also going to have the silver. Now, one thing I do want to mention that I found really funny about this car is the fact that if you took all the badges off and the naming and all that good stuff, I feel like this would be a car you would see in GTA Online, because the back really reminds me of a Porsche, and then the side I'm getting like FRS, like Scion vibes, which is really funny. But this is a pretty cool looking car for the most part, but I did notice when looking at it, it just gave me kind of weird vibes with other vehicles like that you'd really see something like this in GTA. Because when I'm driving this thing like this, it literally looks like a form of a Porsche, at least an off-brand one for that matter. But luckily the car is still pretty cool looking, and the interior is also pretty interesting as well. But you can also do the liveries to the car if you would like to. But for me personally, I'm not going to end up adding any liveries to the vehicle at the moment, even though some of them are probably very cool looking. Now let's move over to the visual parts of this vehicle, which luckily does have a good amount. So starting off with the hoods here, the first one's going to be a carbon fiber upgrade on there, which does actually look pretty dang good on this vehicle. Moving over to the front bumpers now, we'll have 7 other options on here, which it looks like just the inside part of the headlights are basically changing colors to match the car there. Then we're going to have the third one, which paints the front splitter kind of the car down there. Looks pretty nice. Then we're going to have the painted headlight pieces again. Then we're going to have this really big splitter on the front, which I do think that does look kind of nice on this car. Sometimes these really look like you can go plow some snow with them, but luckily that one doesn't look all that bad, I would say. Then we're going to change the color of the headlights again. Then we're also going to have I believe that just puts the canyons on the side, it looks like. Then we'll basically have the different colored headlights again. So for me, I'm going to end up leaving those off. I don't really like how they look all that much. Then moving over to the rims of the car here. So when I got the vehicle, I basically bought the bundle for this. And well, it did come with these rims originally. But there's going to be another one you can add to the vehicle, which I do think these look really nice on this vehicle as well. I'm getting more and more Porsche vibes the more I look at these rims, which is kind of funny. Then you can also add all the rims from the game as well, even though most of them are, well, insanely ugly. Then we're going to move over to the caliper colors, which for me, I'm probably just going to end up leaving this black because I do like how that looks with the red color of the car. Plus, it kind of fits those really cool looking rims as well. Moving over to the side mirrors here, only making them carbon fiber, which I will end up doing that. And then moving over to the rear wings, now it looks like you cannot change the skirts of this car, which does kind of make sense because sometimes, you really cannot do that to some vehicles. We're going to have a couple other options here for this rear wing. I think the carbon one looks kind of nice on there. Then we're going to have this really big wing, which I'm telling you, this is literally a Porsche. I'm not losing my mind. It basically looks like a brand new GT3, which I have to admit is a very cool looking wing on this vehicle, but you can definitely see where they're probably getting that from with this and what they're maybe trying to turn this vehicle into. But now moving over to the rear bumpers here, we're going to have 9 other options that can go on the vehicle. So here's the first one. There's the second one, which looks like it blacks out the taillight there, plus it makes the wording black, which looks really nice. I'll throw that one on there for now. Moving over to the third one here, which paints the bottom diffuser. Looks pretty good on there. We're going to have that one, which also blacks out the letters, and then the taillight again. And then moving over to the next bumper here is going to have a lot of exhaust tips, and I think we should add 2 more to it to make sure this vehicle can then turn into a Bugatti. Moving over to the 6th one there, we'll just black out the taillight and then change the color of the letters again. Then we'll have that one, which makes the exhaust in the back of the car. That one does look pretty dang good on the vehicle, I have to admit. Blacking out the letters once again. And the final 2 here are going to add those big carbon fiber things on the back, which, honestly don't really look all that bad on this car for the most part. I would say depending on the build you might be going after with this vehicle, like putting that big wing on the back, maybe this rear bumper option might look pretty dang good on this vehicle. Then moving over to the final thing will be the interior color, which for me, I decided to choose the gray option here because I feel like it does fit the car the best with the color setup I am running on it. Then I did end up going with the carbon fiber in the middle, but besides that, guys, there's really not much of anything else that can be done to this vehicle. Let me know what your thoughts are on the S1 in the comments below. Do you guys plan on using this car? Do you like it? I would like to know what everybody does think in the comments below. I think everyone does see where I'm coming from with this vehicle being mixed like something you'd see in GTA Online. But nonetheless, let's go do an outside look of the Saleen here and take a closer look at it. Then I do want to take it on a top speed run to really see what it can get to and how it might compare to some of the other vehicles. Then we definitely have to jump into a street race to really test out its overall performance. So now taking an outside look at the Saleen here. Now there's one thing I do want to say, by the way, guys. I'm not hating on this car in any way. I do think it does look pretty awesome for the most part, even though the rear tire does not fit the fender at all there. I know the back of the car does look like a Porsche and all that stuff, but I still do think this car is pretty dang cool looking. I love the rim design. I think the overall bodywork on this vehicle is pretty awesome. Now from the research I have done, I do believe this is going to be a 4-cylinder, so let's take a listen. So for this vehicle being a 4-cylinder, that really does not sound all that bad. Now let's take a look at the interior view of this vehicle, which I did take a quick glance at it earlier, and it does honestly look pretty dang cool for being a Saleen. I mean, it's definitely very unique looking. I do like how the carbon fiber does look in this vehicle, like how it wraps around the dash there, then you do see it on the vents, then looking bottom middle, you're going to see that crazy looking screen, which, you know, most modern vehicles do have some type of big screen in them now. I do think it looks pretty dang cool. It's just, you know, I'm not really into these kind of vehicles, I guess, so to speak, like Saleens and all that, but I do respect the builds of these cars because it's still pretty dang amazing that someone did design this. Then on the dash, so we're going to have the RPM reader, which is going to be pretty normal for these vehicles. You'll also be able to see the gear you are in if you guys do choose to drive this car in first person, which I don't think a lot of people will. But besides that, guys, let's go see what the top speed of the Saleen actually is, because I've been wondering how this vehicle is going to compare to some of the better street vehicles. And well, we all know this is a very competitive class, so some of the vehicles might be really good, and then obviously some are going to be insanely bad. But let's see what the top speed of this car is now. So hitting with Nitro Chemist here, 229 miles an hour is going to be the top speed. Now this could depend a little bit on the road. For example, I'm doing 231 now and or 233, so that's probably going to be the maxed out speed of this vehicle, which actually puts it below the Infiniti Q60, which is definitely going to be pretty low when it comes to top speed. This is going to be one of those vehicles that will most likely struggle on pretty much any of the races that are kind of open, which I have noticed the Saleen here seems to not have that either. This vehicle is going to be very difficult to use even on a shorter track, but nonetheless, let's go take this thing into a race to see how it might perform in there. Now jumping into the race test with the new Saleen here, so I did want to do the West Florida coast because this race has tons of turns and also like big open areas, so it really could put this car to the test. Now one thing I do want to mention is from driving this car for a little bit, I am honestly not a big fan of this vehicle for the most part now. There's a couple of reasons why. So for one, I do think the handling on this car is just way too twitchy and also very slidey for some very weird reason. I did end up changing my settings around a good amount when testing this vehicle out to get it to turn like it is now. Before, this thing was honestly a nightmare to drive, and I jumped into it and I was like, my goodness, people are not going to like this vehicle. And unfortunately, I'm probably still going to go buy that because even with decent settings like I have on it right now, I personally do not find this car all that good. And well, the main reason for that is, well, the car just honestly does not do very well on much of anything besides the fact that it looks like a Porsche, which I do like that, at least from the back anyway. Now for me, I normally do run the manual on most of the vehicles as well, and I have been noticing that this vehicle might be a little wonky with that because, well, shifting into like all the gears and all that on this car kind of is a little weird. It reminds me a lot of the 4-speed transmissions in this game because, well, you're like redlining the car a lot and or hitting the rev limiter, bouncing off that and still accelerating, going like downshifting or upshifting can be kind of weird on turns. I did notice the Saleen seems to do that just a little bit, which kind of does bug me. The other big problem I have noticed with this vehicle is the fact that, well, it does 232 miles an hour on a good day, and that is definitely something that is not good, and 228 on the highway, for example, on this event is going to be a big issue because even if you're following your friends around, you're still going to fall behind on most of the events there because a lot of the other cars are faster. I, for one, run the Infiniti. That car does 237 miles an hour, which is still not that great compared to like the Superleggera, and I could still get a pretty decent time on most of the events with that car, even though it's a little bit slower. This car, on the other hand, on most of the races, guys, I just feel like the Salene's going to fall behind so bad it's going to be kind of hard to watch. I probably will not be using this car in the future. Let me know in the comments below if you guys plan on using this car. Let me know if you have tested it out yourself and what you really do think about the S1 in the comments below. But I would say this might be one of those vehicles I would recommend avoiding and or, you know, really testing it out and or like test driving it before you actually buy it, because I do think there's other vehicles that are better. I'm just not a huge fan of how this thing drives. The overall stability of this car is honestly pretty bad. Now, when I did do the Pikes Peak race earlier, I was kind of surprised with how it did. It really wasn't all that bad. The car did lose itself a little bit on some of the turns, but it really wasn't all that bad on like something like a closed course. But these more open races, this top speed is going to completely ruin this vehicle. But again, let me know what you guys think about this car in the comments below, and thank you all so much for watching.